Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with David Strickle, and this is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And David and I were talking before the show about holiday stresses that affect a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And we're recording this, of course, a few days before Christmas. So it seemed like a good time to talk about this. For most people, I won't say most, for a lot of people, holidays are joyful times. They're times for meeting up with family, for exchanging gifts and celebrating the joys of the season. Colored lights, all that kind of stuff. Louise, in my own case, in our case, we decorate. Actually, she did most of the decorating. I'm enjoying. She's doing the decorating of the apartment. It came out beautiful. So that's the way it is for many people. For other people, it's not quite the same thing. It's a time of stress. I mean, for some people, family can actually be a very stressful thing. Some people are alone on Christmas. Some people are not Christian, not don't even celebrate Christmas, and it varies from one person to the next, of course. But we want to kind of touch on, for those people who are dealing with the stresses of the season, what can we do about it? How do we deal with the fact that we're experiencing it? And plus, to be perfectly honest, I'm also continuing to do research toward my goal of becoming a public speaker addressing stresses with college students. So this kind of all, it all fits together. So David, first of all, glad to have you here today. And
always good to be here. Thank you.
Yep, good to have you. We're actually not going to do a stream connection today. We had originally titled it that way, but we're not going to do a stream connection today. Today's just going to be a day for talking about this stuff, because sometimes you just got to be human. Forget the source energy stuff. We just got to be human today. So we're going to be human today. So David, how's your humanity going? Are you doing? I'm in a human space. Are you in a human space today?
I'm in a very human space right now. It's interesting because the thing about the stream is that the stream's guidance has never steered me wrong, and to my knowledge, never steered anyone wrong. It's all rooted in universal law. They make so much sense of everything, but we still have to pull it down into a human space. And that's why I created TYA, because the idea of just think about the things that you want and they will be, that sounds great. And we know that works, but we have vibrational flow. We're in a polarized environment. Things are speeding up on planet Earth, and we're all aware of it. And it's labeled lots of different things. And it's funny because I am aware of polarity. That's a big, big part of our teachings, that the idea of just get up your spiral and stay up there, or get in the vortex, and that's the answer to everything. That's true. But the problem there is, the rub, if you will, is that we have polarity in this environment, as all physical environments do, according to the stream. And that polarity is going to take us on this magical vibrational journey up and down. And I don't know anyone that has a consistent high vibration that never goes down, that never gets out of the vortex or goes down their spiral, as we say, or any, it just isn't possible. And now with the stream's teachings, I completely understand why we don't even want that. We think that we want to manifest everything we desire. We think we want to live a life of no problems, but we see examples of people who have really good lives who always find a way to manifest a problem. So I don't know anyone that's living perfection, but then I understand that all of the problems and all of the negative stuff, the contrast, however you want to label it, all of that stuff has value, but we have to find the value in it. And when you find the value in it and you appreciate it, you actually detune its power over you. Because all of these things that really drag us down our spiral, they're all human creation of perspective. The holiday that's coming up, if you celebrate Christmas, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, but you feel pressure to have this perfect day, or to be with people because you're supposed to be with people, you turn on the television and the Hallmark movie's on and everyone's together at the end laughing and in love and everything's perfect. And then take your own life into consideration, and suddenly you feel alone, or you're in a bad relationship, or because of COVID, you're not able to be with family and friends. And then that takes you down your spiral because you're judging yourself about it. So what I'm all about today is taking away that emotion of judgment and understand that we hold the power to have any experience that we want, that we can find appreciation in any experience. And it's interesting that we're talking about holiday stress because, as I just told you right before we signed on, literally 10 minutes before we signed on, I found out that a close family member just passed away. And I'm very allowing of everyone to have their experience. So I manage and process that stuff differently than I think a lot of people do, because I have access to that stream perspective of very zoomed out. We're all eternal beings. We're all here having our own life, life experience, but everybody has access to that. I'm not special. I've just spent a lot of time swimming around in that. And the more I swim around in it, the more clarity I receive on how we absolutely create our bubble of reality. And our bubble of reality is very much clouded by what society tells us we're supposed to think and feel. So when we're on Instagram comparing our lives to the perfect home and the perfect body, the perfect car and the mountain of money and the beautiful physique and the beautiful, face and perfect hair and all that stuff, if it's inspiring, that's great. But if it's not, we need to go do something that's more inspiring, because that's not reality for anyone anyway. I call that the Instagram version of life. And
Right.
you have, we're in a polarized environment. So you have two choices with things like that. Hey, that's good, beautiful, good for them. I'm inspired by that. Or I feel like shit because I'm not experiencing that, and I'm going to beat myself up emotionally about it. And there's no value in that. The only value in that is keeping you away from your joy. So the path to learning to love what is so powerful. Whatever is, just loving what you've manifested, whatever it is, because we manifest all of it. And there's joy in that.
There is indeed. And I found it interesting that you described yourself as not being special. I just wanted to mention that from our perspective here on the show, you're very special. So just want to make sure we got that through to you.
Well,
But
I appreciate
I understand
that. I do. I appreciate that.
I understand your point, though, because the fact is, like you said, we all experience contrast. And you made the very interesting point that so many of us who pursue this law of attraction / conscious creation / spiritual journey to try to be in a better place, so many of us want to live that quote perfect unquote life where everything goes smoothly, and yet none of us do. And the odd thing from my perspective about that is, yes, on the one hand, many of us say we want that, and then almost within minutes after saying that, we go out of our way to go back to a life where we do our damn silly best to not do that. We just keep focusing on contrast all over the place. Just, wasn't it a wonderful Hallmark special, to use your example of Hallmark? What are you doing? What are you doing with that remote? Put the remote down. It's like 10 seconds later, we forgot what we were even saying. It's an amazing thing. I mean, what do you think that phenomenon is all about? Is that just habit? What is that?
Because we have been taught this constant stream of be fearful, you're a victim, life is happening to you, you have no control over it, the 1% are controlling your life, and it seems as though the more people go through an awakening experience and they're sort of understanding that, okay, there are universal laws at play in our lives, and we have more power than we think, and we have this sort of mass ascension of consciousness, the polarity of that is more conspiracy theories. There are more,
Yes.
there have always been conspiracy theories, and there are more now than I've ever encountered on my 52 years on the planet. And of course, we have social media that just gives everything a megaphone now, but everything is a conspiracy theory. And you get on TikTok, and there's a lot of great things on TikTok. I've learned a lot of stuff on TikTok, but the negative side of that is there's all these ominous videos of how this person's controlling your life and the Illuminati is doing that. And the thing about that is, and the stream had a really good point to make about this, is that there may be some truth in some of those, that some of those may be completely true. Anything is possible. Most things are not probable. I love that. And what power are we giving to it? Because if we're giving power to politics, and we're giving power to the conspiracy theories, and we're really fixated, there's somebody that I'm close to that's now really going down the rabbit hole of this red pill, blue pill thing. They're seeing everything clearly, and their version of clarity is the whole world is a big conspiracy, and everyone's out to get you, and it's all a big lie, and it's all a big sham, and everything is evil. And I thought, wow, I think I'll take the fake pill then. I think I want to take the pill to live in the la la land reality. Sometimes I make fun of spirituality and spiritual teachings that it's fairy dust and rainbows, but I'll take the fairy dust and rainbows over, a constant dose of fear any day, because how is it serving me?
I
How is
haven't
my
figured that one
thinking
out.
that
That's
Bill
what I was
Gates?
asking you. I don't understand how it's serving you. So
Yeah,
that's why
I
I
look
wanted
at,
to know.
okay,
You're the
maybe Bill
expert.
Gates is injecting everyone with a chip to track you and read your thoughts. How is it serving me to concern myself with that?
Don't know.
I've lived 52 years, and most of them have been bountiful years, if you will, abundant years, and most of them have been happy. Especially the most recent 10 years have been very happy. So I'm happy in my now, and it's not perfect, but I've found peace and happiness in my now. If I let myself go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, worrying about whether Bill Gates is taking over the world with a vaccine or not, how is that serving my happiness in my now? Am I going to stop the vaccine for COVID? Should I try to stop the vaccine for COVID? Can I just zoom out and allow everyone to have their experience that they're having? Yeah, and that's where spirituality is a very helpful thing in my life, is seeing myself as an eternal being. And here's the thing, Walt, I see myself as an eternal being, so I take the pressure off of the life that I'm having, because
Yes.
I'm an eternal being. Nothing's going to end that which I am. I love what the stream says. And if at the end of my life I die and I return to nothingness and nothing happens and I just cease to be and I was wrong, then my being wrong just caused me to have a more joyous life while I had it. And if I'm right, then hey, I'm an eternal being and I had this temporary human experience that was not perfect by any means, but was pretty damn joyful because I learned how to find joy. And now I'm moving on to whatever's next.
Of course, I could also point out that somebody who is, to use your example about the conspiracy theorist may actually be pursuing a path of learning to let go of conspiracy theories. I mean, there's lots of different possibilities, of course, but that's just one of them. And in the process of doing that, they're going to go out of their way to hook into as many conspiracy theories as they can find that they resonate with, that feels good to them. Well, good is in the relative sense. The interesting thing about conspiracy theories, they never actually focus on things that they like. They always focus on things they don't like, but they really like the fact that they don't like it.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing too is that when if it's never proven, then it just kind of moves on to something else and something else and something else and something else and something else. And even when something's disproven, the belief system, we all create our own reality. We create our little bubble. And if you're existing in a bubble where all that stuff is true, then you are going to create a reality where it's all true. And it doesn't matter what is disproven, because in your mind, and we see that in play around us, and we probably all know people that we look at and want to judge as, oh my God, why are you thinking that? And why can't you see past this? Well, their bubble of reality is not that. This person whom I'm close to, smart person, but they are really, 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 really into all of this stuff right now. And I think you're absolutely right. They are manifesting this reality of all of these conspiracy theories and getting really bound up in this, probably to create enough contrast in their own life to then use that as a tool to expand beyond the need to worry about such things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not my business to try to help them in or out of it at all. My place is to step back and allow them to have their experience.
Yeah, you'd be in the way. If you actually stepped in and interfered with that, you'd probably just succeed in pissing them off, and that's about it.
Yeah, you just disconnect.
It wouldn't actually help. Yeah. So
I talk to a lot of people that do things similar to what I do, and a lot of times it's, I'm going to heal the world, I'm going to save the world. And I just think, well, gosh, I don't think the world needs healing or saving, and I don't think I'm the healer or savior of the world. I'm offering something up with my sharing of the stream and the TYA practice for those that want to partake. But even people, that are getting into the TYA practice, I have to realize that any need for them to have a certain experience is just my ego. They're having the experience that they're having, and it varies for everyone. And I feel like there's tools in there that can help anyone live a better life. But if they choose not to, that's the path that they're manifesting. And any need for someone to be a TYA master and be a TYA person, that's all my ego crap. That's all that is. Because even the stream says this isn't for everyone. This is for those that are ready for it. This is something that's co-created, that's a useful set of tools for people that are aligned with it, but not all of humanity is aligned with it, nor will they ever be. And that's completely fine.
So there's one example of how it's possible to be entering the holiday season and feeling down because there's a family member who is into some sort of conspiracy theory that, from your perspective, maybe a bunch of nonsense, but not from their perspective. And I mean, I've already been hearing stories before the Christmas holiday of family members who have basically unfriended each other in the realm of life. They won't even speak to each other anymore
Yeah.
because of some conspiracy theory or other that they're lashed onto, and the other person is saying, how could you possibly latch onto that? And they won't even speak to each other.
Yeah.
So I could just imagine what it's like for, a family like that going into the Christmas holiday. Like, you're looking forward to going to some place, if you're going out at all. A lot of people aren't going out at all, but if you are going out, you're going to a family gathering where there are going to be a bunch of people there who won't have anything to do with you. That's a great thing to look forward to.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I mean, certainly I am one who've experienced, for a couple of reasons, family that doesn't want to have anything to do with me. And I'm completely at peace with that now. But the idea of getting together with people that aren't your chosen family, your close friends that you really enjoy just being around, that's stressful for a lot of people. And we're probably not doing it as much this year, but it's still happening. And right. The best tool to use in that situation is to, again, zoom out to the higher perspective, stop needing to be right, understand that your need, and this is for all of us, your need to argue with your brother-in-law about politics and be right and try to change their mind, that's all your ego stuff.
That's right.
That's all your ego stuff, because whatever they believe is their bubble of reality, whatever you believe is your bubble of reality. And if you try to color in someone else's bubble, yours is probably going to be burst. So you don't want to do that. At the
very least.
Yeah. So much better to just appreciate them for the experience they're having and not need to be right. And don't attach yourself to the need of an outcome.
Yeah. Easier said than done, though. I mean, like you said, you made a whole practice. The TYA practice is about that. It's literally about doing that thing. And the best way to summarize the tool set is what you described, zooming out and developing that perspective of you're okay with it. But that's a big deal. That's something, I mean, that's why people join your boot camp, to learn how to do that, because it's not something that you can just easily say, oh yeah, I'm going to snap my fingers and I'm just going to zoom right back and I'm done. I'm in a great space. That's not the way we normally work things as human beings. We're, like we said before, we're kind of attached to all this negativity that's going on. So let's talk about some of the strategies that we can kind of undertake in order to get there. I mean, we've talked about them before, but let's kind of underline them, and let's do it from a perspective of doing it during the holidays.
Yeah, the like I said, the unique thing about the holidays is that you're thrust into these situations where you're around people that you wouldn't normally choose to be around necessarily. And the tool of appreciation and intention is very important too. Setting an intention before you ever enter the scenario, whether it's a Zoom meeting or actually going to somebody's house or somebody coming to your house, setting that positive intention and understanding that anything that triggers you is your choice, and a good little exercise. And again, just to demonstrate that I'm not perfect, for Thanksgiving, I made this feast for Thanksgiving this year, and I love to cook, and I've now learned how to bake, unfortunately, during COVID. And I cooked and I baked and I made this fantastic meal. And Michael's mother came over and she started complaining and picking it apart as she was devouring it. And I was really tired. Yeah, he pointed out on the third helping of my gravy, she announced that she didn't like my gravy. Like, well, there was something you liked in there to the tune of about a cup and a half. But
apparently,
anyway,
yeah.
So, and I have to say, I do like my own cooking. I do think I'm a good cook, and most people think I'm a good cook that eat my cooking, but she was not appreciative of it. And it really bothered me. And I didn't say anything in the moment because it's his mother and she's, an older lady, and I'm not going to get into all that. But I let it bother me afterward. And then I realized, I'm not practicing what I teach, but I was really exhausted that day because I cooked all the day before. And when your energy is low, you're more susceptible to be triggered because your vibration is low. I didn't do my vibrational work on Thanksgiving. I was too busy running around doing things that weren't as important. And I didn't do the one thing that I teach all over the place on the one day I needed to do it. And it impacted me. And so we went to see her the next day. She lives 2 blocks away. And I realized I need to detune her and not worry about that stuff. That's about me and not about her. And I did. I found appreciation for her. And, we went over and had a wonderful visit with her. And now I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to see her for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And I promise you, I'm going to do my work. I'm going to use my TYA tools and have a much better experience than I did on Thanksgiving. And it was all on me that was the experience on Thanksgiving. I make the dinner and the meal that I make, and people like it or they don't. It's not about me. They are always free to go to the refrigerator and find something else, or order
Right.
in or do whatever they want to do. But their reaction to it is only my trigger if I let it be my trigger. So not allowing yourself to be triggered, being okay if you do get triggered, understanding that we're all vibrational beings, and when you're in low vibe, things can happen. But then not holding a grudge and making a big deal out of it and going on and on and on about it, just taking ownership of it and correcting the situation through appreciation.
Yeah, that going on and on. Talk about law of attraction. I mean, you're guaranteeing you're going to have more opportunities for
Yeah,
that than
you're
what it would
sprinkling
typically do
more
that.
fuel on the situation, certainly.
Absolutely, yeah. But you did make a really great point. You made a few great points there. One of which was it happened when your energy was low, and that's something that it's really easy to do. I mean, you described how you did not take the time to do your usual practices to get yourself into that higher vibe space, and we've all done that. I've done that just about every day. I mean, I'm getting better at not doing it every day, but nevertheless, it happens frequently. But nevertheless, even as it happens, probably the most important thing is recognizing it. And despite the fact that you allowed yourself to fall into that space, you recognized it. So I guess my point is, isn't it true that probably the most important step is recognizing that you're in a low vibration state rather than in a high vibration
Yeah.
state?
Well, and oddly, that's a big part of TYA is recognizing where our vibe is all the time. But the thing about being in low vibe that's so interesting is it's like being intoxicated. Because when you're
Yes.
intoxicated, if you're just a little intoxicated, if you had one or two drinks, and I've had an experience before where I have one or two drinks and I think I'm fine. And then I get in the
Mhm.
car to drive and realize I have no business driving right now. I am not fine.
Right.
So we've all had experiences like that. It clouds your judgment. Being DTS, being in lower vibration, clouds your judgment. You're a different being down there than you are when you're up. And we all know this. We can't even access that high vibe down there sometimes. We've got to pull out our toolkit to move up. And you've got to be intentional about doing that. I don't just naturally always go right back up to spiral, even though I've got a practice that gives me all the tools to do that. I get busy. I'm a type A personality. I'm an overachiever. I want to cook the big, perfect meal and have everything great and have everybody happy. And, I still want that. That's my human side of me. And I'm running around doing all of that stuff instead of going outside and petting my dog for a moment and looking at the sky. And the good news is that when you do enough vibrational work to keep your vibe relatively high all the time, accessing that high vibe is really easy. And it's easy for me.
Yes.
So there was no excuse for me not to do that. I just didn't think to do it because I was already in low vibration, because I got exhausted myself the day before getting everything ready. And the stream says that the very first little bump into the wall, the very first little thing that doesn't go right, you were already DTS to begin with, or it wouldn't have happened that way. So it's not like, I watched this and watching this sit me down my spiral. You would have not come in contact with watching something like that if you weren't already down your spiral a bit to begin with. You just aligned with something that then you allowed to send you further down your spiral.
And of course, DTS is down the spiral for those who are trying to connect the anagram to the acronym rather
Yeah.
to the well, I guess it's an anagram now that I think about it. It's both.
Yeah,
But
DTS is below neutral, and neutral is that
right.
state of no thought where we meditate and connect with source, and source is there and above. So anything below that source connection is DTS, even if it's just mild DTS, if you will, because a lot of times we're in get it done mode, like I was, and we don't realize we're DTS. We're not depressed, we're not angry, but the triggers come easier though. The
They
little
do.
thing that doesn't go right can trigger us when we're down there. When we're up, nothing can trigger us. When I'm really up
Yeah,
the
it takes a lot.
spiral, nothing goes wrong. And if something seems like it's going wrong, I know that it's going right. Everything's right with the world up there. And TYA is all about keeping yourself in that state most of the time, but understanding that you're not going to keep yourself there all the time. We're going to go through vibrational flow. And that has
Which is
value.
why we're here. No, well, that's
Yeah.
why we're here, right? That's
Yeah.
why we came into this life. The other thing that I find to be helpful, and I like the way you voiced it there. You talked about how after you've been doing a practice on a regular basis of staying in a higher vibe, so that it's more familiar, so that it's more frequent. When you do slip down into that DTS, that downward spiral, it's easier to bounce back out of it. And I think it's because you've got the habit built up. That is a message I would have loved to have heard when I was first starting out, because it seemed like every single time that I would try to do something to raise my vibration, it was like Atlas putting the world on his shoulders and trying to stand up. It was that difficult. But you're right, over time, and I've learned this through my own direct experience, as I continued to work on myself on a day-to-day basis, taking little tiny, what Daniel Mangena calls micro steps or micro shifts, uh, just one little tiny bit at a time. Over time, I was surprised that, a day would come along where something would go wrong. I'd have some negative response to something. I'd recognize that I had fallen into that lower energy space, and then I would try to climb out, and I climbed out easily. That surprised me, that
Yeah,
part,
that's
all because I've been doing the work.
it's all vibrational. So we have a frequency, and you're not going to shift from one frequency. It's like the old radio dial where, to get from this end of the dial to that end of the dial, you've got to go through these other channels, right?
Right.
You hear the country station and the Christian preacher and the soul station and all that, all the way to whatever it is you're going to listen to. You get to hear all that stuff. And that's how vibration works. We've got to dial through these micro vibrations to get to the end result that we want. And the key to that is really appreciating and enjoying all these little steps. That's why we talk so much about appreciating the now. Don't get into TYA Bootcamp and say, I'm going to be happy when I graduate TYA Bootcamp. You're never going to graduate TYA Bootcamp. TYA Bootcamp is about finding your happy in the now and using the tools to understand your vibration, to take a step back when you have a negative reaction and say, wow, I was already DTS, or I would have never had that interaction to begin with. I manifested those comments in that way, and certainly my reaction to them was my manifestation, because this is a person that likes to complain about a lot of things. So my absorbing that and internalizing it was my choice, but it was my DTS choice.
There's a great recognition there too. It isn't just recognizing that our energy is low or that we're down the spiral. It's recognizing that I manifested something that I didn't like or didn't want, but I manifested it anyway, and recognizing it and saying, yes, I take ownership of that thing. That I don't know if that fits into your step-by-step in TYA.
Yeah,
but for
that's
me,
very
that's a big
TYA.
part of
That whole scenario is very TYA. And what happens is that I do enough vibrational work to where I didn't lose it with her or blow up, which would have been a bad thing.
Sure.
I just kind of let it flow over me, and then it kind of bothered me a little later after the fact because it all kind of stacked up. And had I not detuned that would have just flowed over to the next day, the next day, the next day, and the momentum would have built, and I would have a horrible experience awaiting me coming up on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, when we're going to have more of that same scenario for 2 days in a row. And it's going to be just 4 of us. It's not a big, crowd like I'm used to having. So it's all us, and that's all there is, And so the detuning work is amazing because you can literally change people's behavior toward you.
So let's talk about detuning a little bit more in specific detail. What are some of the strategies we can use? What are some of the tactical approaches we can use to detune ourselves from stuff we don't like?
But the easiest way to detune anything is to look for the light. What do I appreciate about this person, this circumstance, this event, this situation? If somebody says that they work at a job full of toxic people and they hate going to work, the first thing I will say is, well, first of all, let's step back from labeling everybody toxic, because that's one of those loaded words. Because you start slapping that label on people, you're going to create more of that for yourself. So find things that you appreciate about them. Find things that you appreciate about the job environment. Even if you don't want to stay in the job, you're focusing on how much you don't like it is the very thing that's sticking you there. So when you find appreciation for it, I had somebody that I worked with that went through boot camp a few years ago, and she lived in Australia, and she worked on a seed farm, and she worked with all these people that bullied her all day long. And she went out, and her job was separating seeds on the seed farm. And this group of women treated her very, very poorly, and she wanted out of the job. Well, she went through boot camp, and the amazing thing that happened in boot camp is she detuned the transgressors. The people that treated her badly all quit. The other people that were around that sort of supported it started treating her better. She liked her job more, And then she manifested this real estate portfolio deal where she became a millionaire essentially and didn't have to work anymore.
Wow. Oh, what a turnaround. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
from seed farm to million. And she had made peace with the job. It
Yeah,
wasn't, I
apparently.
hate this job, I got to get out of here, I want to do this. It was, I love my job now. Everyone treats me so well. Oh, and I have this opportunity. Oh, it worked. Oh, I don't have to work anymore.
Wow. I don't
Yeah.
even know where to begin on that one. That's
Life
like,
can be that,
phew,
can
what a
be that
jump that
magical.
is.
Again, we're creating
Yeah,
our bubble of reality. So anything that we can truly believe, we will then align with and will be.
that's
And
very
sometimes
cool.
I forget how magical my life has been until I start telling these stories and realize, wow, I forget that. I was just telling a
Mhm.
story on another show earlier today that I used to really dread driving in traffic. I don't like crowds. I think it's a vibration thing. I absorb so much. I don't like crowds. I don't like standing in
Mhm.
line. I don't like being in traffic. I don't like feeling stuck and surrounded. And I lived in downtown San Francisco, which I did to myself. I wanted to live in the city. And my job had me driving out of the city every day. So it takes, just with traffic, roughly an hour to get out and an hour to get back in every day, plus the commute to wherever I'm going once I get out of the congestion of the city.
Right,
So
right.
I really hated the commute, but it was part of my everyday experience. I had to go to a different location every day. And so that's when I started setting an intention for a safe and stress-free journey everywhere that I went. And I noticed that when I set this intention for a safe and stress-free journey, the person that would cut me off wasn't cutting me off anymore. I got all the green lights instead of red lights. Traffic eased up. There were times that I found myself. I forget the freeway. It's a busy freeway. It's about 5 lanes each direction or 6 lanes. And I found myself a few times in heavy traffic. My car was the only car, and there was like a wall of traffic behind me and a whole wall in front of me. And I was just in the middle lane, just doing my thing, and no one was around. It was so weird. I'm like, how in the hell did I manifest this in San Francisco rush hour? It's crazy. It was crazy. So I
I've done the
realized that I
same thing.
detuned the experience. And I always talk about how my commutes were so much more enjoyable. I do that to this day. I do not get in my car without setting an intention for a safe and stress-free drive. I've been doing it for years. No speeding tickets, no accidents, nothing like that. So I set the intention and I made that my daily habit. And I didn't realize until I was sharing the whole story today that not only did I have better commutes, I manifested my way out of the job that I was having to drive in every day, manifested my way to living in Palm Springs where there's no traffic ever,
Yeah, right.
unless I want to go into LA. That's a whole different story. But out here, my daily life, there's no traffic here.
Mhm.
And my car sits in the garage 6 to 7 days a week and doesn't even move because all my business is done right now from home. And it was
Right.
sort of
Yeah.
like, holy shit, I completely manifested a path away from ever having to sit in traffic ever. It was way beyond just appreciating and making it better in the moment. I manifested the bigger picture is I also manifested my way out of the job that required the commute, out of the city that caused the commute into a life situation where there's no commute. How
Right.
crazy is that?
That's very crazy, but it's cool. I like it a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And I
Couple
didn't
things
fully put all that together until just today.
Well, a couple things occurred to me too while you were telling that story. One thing that occurred to me is, yeah, I mean, you told a wonderful story early on there about a person who worked on a seed farm and ended up becoming a millionaire because she detuned the negative people she was working with, which is an amazing story. Uh, I can't say I've had lots of experiences like that one. I haven't, but I have had experiences where I didn't call it detuning, but it was essentially the same thing. I would find I would be working with, or I would be associating with somebody who I didn't like very much and wasn't getting along with and wasn't enjoying. And I would attempt to just do something to change the dynamic, and I would do it in a positive way. And usually, what would happen is, let's say it was somebody who habitually criticized me. Okay, uh, so I go into the environment where this person is habitually criticizing me, and uh, maybe I don't know, I say something nice about what they're wearing that day. And that's so completely out of the realm of what they're used to from me that you can just see the cognitive dissonance playing around with their head, right? Like that doesn't compute. So they just kind of reject it and they go right back to the old pattern. And so then I come up with something else to say that is pleasant and nice about them or about what they're doing, and you did a great job on that project or whatever, and the cognitive dissonance starts to play in their head again. And after two or three of those, it's almost like they lose their bearings. And that's fun for me. Watching somebody who is so used to a pattern, a negative pattern with me, lose their bearings because I shifted the way that I was dealing with them. And I have actually experienced what you described, where her coworkers actually disappeared, they went away. I've experienced that as well. But even the more immediate effect of just seeing what happens during that first day when you try it, and then maybe the second day and the third day, the behavioral pattern disruption is almost funny. It's almost
Yeah.
amusing.
Yeah. When you realize that you're powerful enough to change the behavior of other people toward you, that is magical, but it's true. You can change the traffic around you. You can change your coworkers. You can change your family. And the detuning process is very, very powerful because the energy that you're putting toward it is completely shifted. I appreciate you as you are. It doesn't matter to me what you believe, what your conspiracy theories are or aren't. Whatever it is, I just appreciate you the way that you are. I'm going to allow you to have your experience. It's not my business. It's not my business to change the world. It's not my business to change your mind. I'm creating my bubble of reality. You create yours and enjoy it. And they are disarmed really in that vibration and detuned ultimately. And you can continue to do that work and detune really all of in TYA. We detune all of our transgressors, everything, every unwanted, anything that we cannot look upon in full appreciation, we detune through appreciation. Something bubbles up that you don't appreciate, there's something to detune right there. And there's usually a root to it that is much bigger than the little thing that's just bothering you in the moment.
Yeah, oh, sure. Jenny in the live stream added a comment about this. She said, detuning from your mother-in-law reminds me of the concept of detaching with love. And I guess because you're focusing more on what it is that you like, that is detaching with love, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and the idea of detaching can mean you have to separate from them. She lives 2 blocks away. I see her all the time. She loves my dog, so I'm constantly over there. So the detuning, and I don't know exactly what she means by detaching, but it's detaching for the need for approval or the need of cooperation or the need of any kind of specific outcome. Because if we detach from the need of an outcome, we always have a much better experience. We hang so much, on the job promotion or the bank loan or getting that house, or we just think our happiness just hangs on something and we make it so big. And if we don't get it, we're just destroyed. And if you set an intention for best possible outcome, I cannot tell you how many times in my life something didn't go right in the moment that ended up being the biggest blessing ever.
Yep.
One of the things that when I was in the home furnishings business, I was interviewing, and there was a company that I wanted to work for, and they were sort of the Rolls Royce of the industry. I sort of worked for the Mercedes Benz of the industry, and I wanted to work for the Rolls Royce, right? And I was interviewing to be the president of the company, and I was very far along in the process. I had been flown to multiple interviews. I had been to a corporate psychologist. I had done all of these, in-depth things to get this job that I thought I wanted so much. And I ended up not getting the job. And I wasn't devastated. I already had some of these tools working in my life, so I wasn't really devastated by it. I just knew that, okay, that just means that there's something better waiting for me. Well, the better waiting for me is that I didn't even really want to be in that field any longer. I was sticking myself there because I thought I had to have that title and that career and that path for that big income. That was sort of the last frontier for me to let go, is that, why do I need a guaranteed biweekly income? Why do I need that? If I really believe how powerful I am, I can live in abundance without a guaranteed paycheck coming in. And it only fear is what's keeping me here. And the only reason I wanted that job is because it was a bigger title and maybe a bigger biweekly income and a bigger feather in my cap as far as my ego goes. But it wasn't really what I wanted to do. What I really wanted to do was share the stream with the world and help people change their lives with what the stream has to share. So I quit my job shortly after that, and so glad that I did, because if I had gotten that job, I would have probably stuck myself in that business for a few more years, because it would have fed my ego for a while to have that big title, and then been a few years behind in what I'm doing right now, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to
I could be just
teach
now
you
getting
that as
started,
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Also, the story you told about how you were trying to handle the commute into San Francisco, and you described at one point how you'd be flowing into the traffic, and the traffic would almost be getting out of the way. I can really identify with that. I've experienced that on a number of occasions. One of the most fun ones is something that happened quite a few years ago, and I haven't told this story on the podcast for well over a year, so I'm pretty sure most listeners haven't heard this one. But this was back when Louise and I were living in Virginia, which would have been pre 2014. And at, I don't remember which year it was, but there was one year where my brother and sister-in-law brought members of her family who are originally from Trinidad to visit us in Virginia. Now, we lived about 50 miles outside of Washington, D.C. So, as you can imagine, because we would get into DC fairly often, that was one of the reasons people wanted to come visit us. They wanted us to give us a personal tour of Washington, DC. So, okay, we were willing to do that. The thing also that anybody who has ever dealt with DC traffic knows is how horrible it is, particularly as you get close to the city, and not just the traffic, but also parking. Parking is really, really difficult to come up with. And we weren't even going to try to drive into the city. We were trying to do it the smart way, take the metro train in. But even the metro stations get filled up really, really early in the morning. I mean, it's just hard to get a parking spot so you can get in. And once you get on the train, you're fine. But until then, it's kind of a nightmare. So, and I knew that we had so many people, it wasn't going to be one vehicle, it was going to be two. We couldn't fit everybody into one vehicle. So it was just finding a parking spot for one. It was finding a parking spot for two cars.
Wow.
And so I actually did some homework. I mean, I was looking on the website for the metro, trying to find out, okay, is there a way to guarantee a spot? Well, yeah, you could do it if you pay like $10,000 a year for a parking permit and all that kind of stuff. Like, well, okay, I'm going to try to avoid that option. And we finally just decided we're going to use what we know about law of attraction to get it, because I couldn't find a way to do it. The closest thing I could come was I knew that if you arrived at one of the commuter parking lots at exactly 10 a.m., they have a little rule there that the people who have the pre-established permits can grab their permit spaces up until 10 o'clock. After 10 o'clock, anybody can grab the permit spaces. So it's kind of a way to get a quick hit if you're there at the right moment in time. So I said, well, maybe we can get there and be there right at 10 a.m. and grab a couple of those spots and then have our day in DC. So, okay, we get on the highway. And this is route, if for people who know the route, it's I-66 going through Virginia into DC. It is literally one of the worst commutes in the nation. For those who actually do the commute every day, you talk about an hour. For that commute, it's like 2 hours just to get into the city, not counting the time getting close to the city, getting close to the Beltway. So it's just a nightmare commute. But we got onto the road and we're in high vibe and we're traveling together. We're talking by cell phone between the two vehicles and feeling good. And then we get about halfway there and traffic comes to a complete halt. And it turns out there's a traffic accident. Now, this is like this isn't LA with 12-lane highways. This is like a 6-lane highway, so 3 on each side. And all 3 lanes were jammed up. There were even cars that were over in the emergency lanes trying to go that way, and they were jammed up. So nothing was moving. And I looked at the clock, and I knew that the pattern we were on would have gotten there at 10 o'clock. So every minute that we sat there was going to be a nightmare, because it would mean we weren't going to get there in time to grab one of those coveted spots, 2 of those coveted spots for our vehicles. So we're sitting there, and we're talking to each other, all consciously trying to raise vibration. And so I don't remember who it was. Somebody pointed out, why don't you go over there? There's some cars moving. Now, over there was an exit ramp. I said, I don't want to take an exit ramp. But I heard this little jolt inside saying, go over toward the exit ramp. So I went toward the exit ramp. I have no idea why. And the other car followed me, inching very slowly over to the exit ramp. And just as we got over there, the ramp opened up. All the traffic in front of us opened up, and the merge onto the highway opened up as well. So all of a sudden, we just zoomed around this entire pile of traffic. Like, what the hell just happened? So we keep going, and we get to the exit for the metro station, and we could tell it's going to be cutting it close. We're probably going to be 2 or 3 minutes late, right? And you don't want to waste any time. So which side of the road are we going to be on? Well, there's parking on the right side of the highway. There's parking on the left side of the highway. So I went for the right side of the highway, got over there. All of those coveted spots were taken. Oh no. And now, of course, it's like 5, 6, 7 minutes after before we're going to get over to the left side of the highway. Well, we're just going to go for it anyway. I mean, what else are we going to do? We'll just, we'll get into a good vibe space. We're just going to go over there and see what happens. So we got over there. And as we're driving up to the entrance where there's, the gate and so forth, we could see 2 of those spots were open, but there were 2 cars waiting to go inside the gate. I said, oh, geez, how are we going to do that? So we pull up behind them and nobody's moving. Now, there's nobody at the gate. There's no ticket taker or anything like that. It's just that there was a sign at the gate saying lot full. And the front car was looking at the lot full side and trying to figure out what to do. And as I looked at it, I realized he was sitting quite back from the gate. So I decided to be bold, and I just drove around him and went through the gate. My brother drove around him and went in through the gate. We got the last 2 spots, and the others are sitting out front. So literally, we got the last 2 spots available in the entire parking complex for the Metro train station.
Love it.
And we did it on a day where it was the only time we were commuting.
You kept trusting.
We were novices.
It's all about trust, and you kept trusting. You didn't give up.
Exactly. And we had a wonderful day. It was a great day visiting Washington, D.C. So just kind of that's kind of a crazy version of the story, but it shows it really does work.
Yeah. Well, it's continue to trust and don't throw in the towel just because it seems like stuff's not working out. You can't throw in the towel. You've got to go back up in vibration and trust. And it's sort of like you had a choice when you got there and saw the first lot was full. You could have, gotten upset and said, this doesn't work. And and doing all that stuff, but you kept trusting.
We did. Well, there was nothing else to do. It was either that or else drive home.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So we figured, hey, let's just go for it. The worst thing that could happen is it doesn't work. So what? No big deal.
That's the way to live life about everything. I think everything.
Yeah. So that was a big educational point for me. And ever since then, I've had many experiences where not even asking for it, traffic just opens up for me in the middle of a very, very busy highway. And I'll look at it and, it'll be one of those deals where you have 2 or 3 lanes available and 2 of the lanes are all jammed up and the 3rd lane was jammed up and you pull into it and all of a sudden, literally, it's like the cars move out of their way so you can pass.
Yeah.
Which is a really strange feeling. It's fun.
Once you practice it enough, then it becomes your default vibration. Your subconscious starts thinking, I move with ease through traffic. I get parking spaces. I make friends easily. Money comes easily to me. All of those things work. The things that don't work are the things that our belief system is not allowing us to believe yet. So we're battling that little, that app that's running in the background, and we can say all the affirmations we want to say. Oh, I'm so rich. I just feel so rich. But if the back of your mind is saying, no, you're not. You're trying to convince yourself, but you're not. There's other work that needs to be done. And this detuning and meditation and all these things that we talk about all the time, they all work together in conjunction to start moving you up the dial, if you will, through these micro steps, like Dan says, moving you little by little by little by little into a more positive place. And if you're diligent in your work, you can look back at one point and realize, wow, I've changed so much. But you don't realize on a day-to-day basis how much you're changing. But I'm as impatient as anybody on the planet. I'm sure I can be very impatient. I want everything just to work out right away. But had I given up on these things, I would have never created this practice. And I would have never changed my life the way that I did. I would never have started sharing it with other people and helping other people change their lives. So it's believing in something enough that you go back to it again and again and again and again, because you've got to overwrite or rewrite that programming that we've all been programmed with our whole lives. Money is hard to get. You need to go get a job and work for a good company and hope that you can save some money for retirement. And, it's really easy to get sick, and you really better take care of your health because everybody's sick and it's all terrible and it's all bad and don't trust anyone. It just goes on and on and on from there. And you can buy into that and make that your bubble of reality, or you can step back and say, no, I'm not going to participate in that.
And it takes practice. I mean, it's not like the first few times is easy.
Well, that's why the detuning transgressors is so important, because all of that negative transgressor energy, that's the thing that when you go down your spiral, go down in vibration, it's sort of lurking down there waiting for you, and it connects with you and sort of draws you down. Just like when you meditate and raise your vibration, the source connects with you and can draw you right up. The negative stuff acts the same way. and you feel like you're on this downward spiral that you can't stop, that you're just sliding. And it's because you've got all of that transgressor energy just waiting for you down there. But when you start working on detuning it systematically, there's less and less and less of that energy. And then what you'll find is things will bubble up and sort of present itself for you to pay attention to. Here's another limiting belief that I have that I can now go about detuning by finding the root of it and finding appreciation for it and not having it be a trigger for me anymore. Once you appreciate something, it doesn't trigger you. Once you appreciate your mother-in-law that complains about your cooking, her complaining will not be a trigger for you anymore.
Yeah, which is odd, but it is what happens. That's the point I want to make, that it feels odd when it first happens. And it's almost like you have to kind of allow yourself to say, you know what, I deserve that. You know what, I deserve that kind of positive result. It's okay that it's happening. I actually earned that, whatever it takes to get yourself accepting it, because this is a big theme for me. It's easy for those things to show up and to not give them the attention. It's easy to just
think about how we give old people a pass, right? Mm-hmm. My grandmother was Southern. She lived in North Louisiana in one little town her whole life. Very stereotypical Southern woman. And she died at 95 a few years ago. And before she died, I took my then partner, who was from New York, to meet her. And he had not been raised around that type of mindset. Very racially divided mindset. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Right. She would say things and use words that we're not supposed to say and use, right? Mm-hmm. And my attitude toward her, she's 95 years old. You're not going to change who she is. Just, let her be herself. Everyone around her treats her like that. And that's how we treat people of a certain age usually. We're not going to start arguing with a 95-year-old woman who can barely get out of her chair that, she shouldn't say that and it's awful and it's terrible. What's the point is what I was saying. And he kind of accepted that and kind of just thought it was entertaining after a while. Had she been 35, and somebody else, it would have been a whole different story. And the reason that I'm using this to illustrate the point is we pick and choose how we react to these things. The only reason we gave her a pass is because she was 95 years old. And she can barely hear, she can barely communicate, and you're going to start arguing with her about something at this point in her life. It's who she is and how she is. And we could have a pleasant visit with her. It was the last time I ever saw her. Or it could have been a horrible visit. It was a pleasant visit. And so we apply these different sets of rules based on our judgment of someone. But if we strip all that away and just say, it's none of my business if they want to be that way, if they want to say those things, I don't have to be around them if they're really extreme, but I also don't have to try to change them because they're having their experience. And how often are we successful in changing the minds of other people, especially in the moment? We're just not. It's not very successful. So you've got to choose your battles and decide, are you going to go in and have an argument with your brother-in-law on Christmas and change his mind about something and ruin everybody's Christmas, including yours, in the process? What's the success rate of that? Is that probable? Probably not. Allow him to be who he is. If it's something you find very distasteful, you don't have to choose to be around that, certainly. But trying to battle it and push against it and dread it and hate it, you're just holding yourself away from joy.
It's an odd thing, too, that we do that. I mean, because you just described it beautifully. That happens a lot, particularly in family gatherings around the holidays, where there's somebody who is trying to talk somebody else into something. And you phrased it very gently. You said, how often does that work? Well, the more hardcore answer is it never works. I have never in my life seen it work. Not, and I used to.
Well, and why do you need it to work? Is the real question. You need it to work because your ego needs the food of being right. I'm going to change his mind. I think differently.
It's kind of like the heroin. There's one difference, but otherwise it's like the heroin addict. The heroin addict had one high that was perfect, and then they'll never get that again, but they keep trying to get it. But the person who argues never gets the high, but they still go after it anyway.
Right. And they need to hold people away from their contrast, and we are here for the contrast. That's a big aha, I think, for me, when I realized, wow, we're here for the negative stuff. I don't need to hold somebody away from their negative stuff. We're here to have that experience. And if I truly believe we're eternal beings, there's nothing that's going to happen here on earth that's going to end us. So why not just let everybody have their experience and be in high appreciation of it? And I know that there's that argument, well, we've got to change the world and you're just going to let the world spiral out of control. Well, a lot of people are trying to change the world, and it's getting more polarized as we speak. So what's the more joyful path for you? And the need to save people from themselves is always rooted in your ego.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, look at all the things that society fights against. Politically, there's the war on drugs. Well, we have more drugs than ever. There's the war on poverty. That's doing really, really well. Then there's the war
Yeah, I
on
think we almost
terror.
have that one solved, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, every single time that we declare a war on something, it's a guarantee it's going to get worse. I mean, you can take that one to the bank, but
Yeah.
most people don't want to learn from that. I don't know why. I used to be one of those people, and I still can't explain why I would want that. Like, I guess the best explanation I can give is, like you said, it was ego. I was trying to find some way to feed my ego, which really meant I just needed to build up my own self-love and self-confidence, but I didn't understand that.
Yeah. Well, again, it's really coming to the realization that we create our bubble of reality, and you're not going to create anyone else's bubble of reality for them.
Right.
And in politics is all about trying to create people's bubble of reality for them. Politics is all about that. I'm going to vote for the candidate that believes the way I believe because I want to force my beliefs on everyone else. Well, you shouldn't want to do that. Well, I'm right and they're wrong.
Yes.
What makes you right and them wrong?
That has been
you believe.
That is the ultimate question. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, as polarized as our politics are, I promise you, people that are extreme on each side absolutely positively believe they are right and everyone else is wrong.
Yep.
And are they wrong? They're right for them. That was a huge realization, you know, and as a gay man, the gay community is quote unquote victimized a lot.
Sure. Oh yeah.
You know, victimized a lot, but being in that victim space did not feel good to me. And being in that, oh, I need the government to approve of my rights. And, you know, no, I'm just not going to participate in that experience. Well, what about the other people? Well, they're having their experience. Let them have their experience.
Yeah. It's a hard concept, but when you get it, when you really get it, it's a very eye-opening concept. I talked earlier about how it's strange at first when you start getting different responses, but what happens in the long term is that you look at the people who are still struggling with stuff and you're now detuned from it, and all of a sudden it's just, now that's the strange experience, seeing the people who are behaving that way. It's like, oh, well, that's really strange. I don't think about that way anymore.
Well, I'm still surprised when people talk about, oh, you know, the world is so terrible, it's awful, the pandemic is so, I'm like, really? I kind of forget that. Like, my life is really good. My life is not perfect, but it's really good. I mean, the worst thing that happened to me is my mother-in-law, you know, sent me down my spiral. It's not my mother-in-law.
Right.
You know, she's acting as, sent me down my spiral on Thanksgiving. And, you know, I, you know, my life's not perfect at all, but I'm just not participating in the stuff that everybody's hysterical about. But them being hysterical is their experience. Let them be hysterical. It's fine with me. Just don't expect me to, you know, I've lost friends because I wouldn't get in the hysteria over the election in the United States. I mean, no, I'm not going there.
And it's a very powerful position to adopt, that position, because that ends arguments. I mean, that frustrates those who want to continue the arguments.
Yeah, it ends friendships and arguments. But if you need me to argue with you or agree with you to be your friend, then, you know, what values in the friendship?
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. Well, hopefully this is helpful to people who are dealing with issues going into the holiday season. Next week, David will be back and we will do a stream of David. So we already have a couple questions in the queue. I'm sure there'll be more then. And feel free to send yours in. By the way, that's the purpose of the LOA Today app, because on the app, in the goodies section, you can click on the ask a question form and fill in your question there about what it is you want us to ask. And guess what? We'll ask it and get the answer directly from the stream. But in the meantime, David, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas holiday and look forward to talking to you next week.
You too as well, Walt, and to all of you out there, thanks so much. And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everybody. And thank you to Jenny for her comment in the live stream. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners as well, because without you, hey, we wouldn't have a podcast. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.